Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hi, welcome again to our discussion of Animal Farm. Before we proceed with the novel, let's quickly recall what we did in the previous class. We began with an introduction to the writer George Orwell and how he has India connections and how his extensive travels in India and South Asia shaped the writer in him, and his experiences as a police officer in Burma too shaped the writer in him. And of course, we discussed his political ideologies, how he had a kind of pathological opposition to totalitarianism in principle and in practice, and how his novels and how his essays and how he himself through his various journalistic ventures supports democratic systems, because he believed that democracy as such, as a political ideology, has the capacity to treat all its citizens in an equal way. That is his political belief. And we also understood the philosophical roots of Animal Farm, and we discussed how some of the notable illustrious predecessors of George Orwell employed fables and allegories in some extraordinary ways to critique the society they lived in, and how Animal Farm is shaped by the ethos of all the predecessors, all his predecessors. In fact, one of the notable exceptions, one of the notable contributions is also from Kipling's Jungle Book, which played a major role in shaping up this particular work, Animal Farm. And we discussed the novel in terms of its political ideology. We also discussed novel in terms of its critical reception, and we introduced all the major characters that appear in the novel, and of course we had a detailed discussion of Animal Farm, especially the first 3 chapters. Okay. So, now in this class let us continue our discussion of Animal Farm from chapter 4 onwards. It has just 10 chapters. That is the reason why I have been asking you to read it. You may be able to complete reading this novel in about, let us say, 2 hours. It would not take even 2 hours. Okay. So, please read this novel in case you have not read it so far. Of course, it is never too late. Please read it. I am sure you will enjoy it all the more. Okay. Yeah. Let us resume our discussion of Animal Farm with chapter 4. Until chapter 3, what has happened is, in chapter 1 there was a dream. The old major dreamt of establishing an animal farm based on the principles of equality and freedom, and in chapter 2, without their actually realizing it, revolution is already there. Of course, they have been preparing for this revolution for quite some time. After the death of the major, under the leadership of Snowball and Napoleon, all the farm animals are picking up literacy. They are trying to learn to read and write, and they have been singing their anthem, Beasts of England, and there is a kind of renewed camaraderie with each other. And of course, in the meanwhile they have also begun calling each other comrade. In order to indicate that all of them are equal, they begin calling each other comrade. And now with the expulsion of Mr. Jones, they set up their own farm now. Now they turn it from, earlier it was called Manor Farm, and now they rename it to Animal Farm, and the doctrine that governed it comes to be called animalism, which is best exemplified in their 7 commands, 7 commandments. Brilliant commandments. Unfortunately, many animals find it difficult to learn all the 7 commandments. Therefore, what Snowball does, he reduces the 7 commandments into 2, and through the propaganda of Squealer, they come to say that the new abridged constitution is as good as the unabridged one. And what is this abridged constitution now state? It states 2 legs bad, 4 legs good, right? 2 legs bad, 4 legs good, 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, something like that. You recall that, right? Okay, good. Yeah, so of course many animals and especially birds protest because they think they are not represented, whereas Squealer convinces them that even their wings are considered legs. And of course for any sensible reader here, you can see a huge jump from the high ideals of the 7 commandments to just this reduced commandment, the reduced new commandment. So all the nuances are lost, all the lofty ideals with which the 7 commandments were crafted, those are diluted. Unfortunately they don't realize it, and all the animals, because now that Jones has been driven away, now they want to work hard, especially Boxer, whose personal motto is to work hard. I will work harder, that's his personal motto. And they work together, and with the help of the pigs and with renewed camaraderie and companionship, they are able to turn that particular season's harvest into a bumper harvest, so they are very happy, So now that the control of the animal farm is in the hands of these animals, now what happens? They are not just, they are not happy with the revolution in their particular farm. They also want this revolution to spread to the neighboring farms. Therefore, Snowball and Napoleon employ pigeons to spread the word of their rebellion, so that even the neighboring farms, even there many animals are still under the tyranny, under the oppression of human beings. So maybe taking the leaf out of this particular model, they too can revolt against it. So they want to now make it a new norm, make this a new norm. So in order to realize the old major's dream of ridding the whole earth of human beings, getting rid of the earth of all human beings because they represent tyranny and oppression, they begin spreading the word. And meanwhile, what has happened? Jones has been driven out of his own farm. He takes refuge in the neighbor's farm, and now all of them are plotting. Now they are worried because this may set as bad precedents, right? Because so for all the right reasons, the farm owners of the neighboring farmlands, they are absolutely worried. So now what concerns them is this kind of radicalizing. They call it radicalizing of the animals, and they think it's against nature. They consider it, they are going against the laws of nature. They want now they want to take control. So now what is happening with the help of so Mr. Jones, he takes the help of his fellow human beings and now comes back to, they come with all their weapons, and now they come back to take control of animal farm, and again pigeons and other birds help them, caution them about an impending war. So now even all the animals in the farm, they are also ready. In fact, Snowball and Napoleon, they have already, in fact, they have prepared the ground for a good battle, right? So now when the human beings attack them, of course there are some casualties on both sides, but with the cooperation of all the animals and all the birds, they succeed once again in driving all the human beings out of the animal farm, right? So it's a battle takes place between human beings and the animals with a lot of difficulty. Of course, animals succeed, and they come to call this event the Battle of the Cowshed and agree to celebrate their victory every year. In fact, you can find rich allusion to the October Revolution here, okay, historically speaking. So, you can also of course shades of historical fiction here. You would not be wrong if you can spot shades of historical fiction here, because of course it has thick references to historical events. All right. So, this is chapter 4, and so therefore, every I mean it happens in October. It is called October Revolution, and that is why they want to celebrate it every year, because it marks the beginning of their independence. Okay. So, this is the Battle of Cowshed. Now, chapter 5 is very interesting for very many significant reasons, because again if you look at the plot structure that we studied, Freytag's pyramid, so you need a point of climax. So, chapter 5 in this particular novel achieves that purpose. Now the rising action in the novel reaches a pinnacle point in chapter 5. So, what happens here? Animals are not happy because they have realized that pigs, in the name of doing all the hard work, in fact they are not doing hard work. What they are doing now, they have begun consuming solely milk and apples. They are not distributing them to all the other animals, and when somebody questions, so Squealer convinces them, pigs have to do all the mental work, and you do not know how difficult it is to think. Our intellection requires lot of milk and lot of apples, therefore we have to eat it, and obviously you do not want Mr. Jones to come back, right. So, they use Mr. Jones as a kind of a threat, to scare animals, and now they consolidate their position. Pigs have consolidated all the power, and now almost they begin exploiting animals. Some animals begin sensing it, but of course now with the help of the propaganda leader in the pig, they succeed in dousing the flame of dissent among the animals. But throughout there has been a tug of war between two major pigs, two major leaders, Napoleon and Snowball. Of course, we have already identified that Snowball, historically speaking, represents Trotsky, and Napoleon of course stands for Stalin. So, like there was a tug of war, tussle for power between the two of them after the demise of Lenin. So, here too there is a tug of war. There has always been a tug of war, and Snowball comparatively is a visionary. In fact, he has some plans. So, actually what he has plans to set up a windmill in the animal form, because he believes that the windmill is capable of generating electricity. As a result of electricity, of course, here windmill symbolizes industrial revolution. Okay, you can understand that, right. So, he believes that this windmill is capable of generating electricity. As a result of that, they would be able to make all the hard work a bit easier. So, that is his vision. But Napoleon senses that if Snowball is allowed to have his way, then he might take control of the entire animal farm. Therefore, what he is doing, he is secretly grudging, nursing a grudge against Snowball. And in the meanwhile, what has happened, you have the dogs, right. You are introduced to dogs in the very beginning. So, now they give birth to a couple of puppies, 6 to 8 puppies. Now, very cleverly in one of the earlier chapters, you find Napoleon taking away those pups, and now he is taking care of them in a separate place. So, he has an ulterior motive. So, now as a result of that, of course, now here what happens in chapter 5, the tension, the conflict between Snowball and Napoleon intensifies. Now, there is a debate. Now, Snowball has as I said, Snowball wants to set up a windmill in the farm, whereas Napoleon opposes it. Now, in order to consolidate his position, Snowball has convened a meeting. Okay. Snowball has convened a meeting, and there he wants all the animals to vote according to their conscience, and if all of them want the windmill to be set up, he would set up the windmill with their cooperation, and if they do not want it, like Napoleon does not want it, then he would listen to it. That is the plan. But now Napoleon is very wicked. He senses the upper hand that Snowball has already gained, and remember, between the two of them, Snowball is a visionary, and he is gifted, he has this gift of gab, he has extraordinary rhetoric skills, and he can give wonderful speeches, and Napoleon senses that probably Snowball is going to win the majority. So now when the votes are about to be cast, Napoleon gives some kind of a call, as a result of which, before the first animal is about to cast his or her vote, all of a sudden grown up, tall, well built dogs come out and circle around Napoleon and stare menacingly at the animals, especially at Snowball. So now you can find the connection, right? Now what has happened, while Snowball is busy chalking out his vision, delivering speeches, consolidating his base among the rest of the animals, Napoleon is shrewdly consolidating an army, a secret army, with the help of which he wants to snatch power away from Snowball. So at his command, now they just jump onto Snowball, and Snowball just manages to save his skin and runs out of the farm as fast as he can. So now, like Mr. Jones, Snowball too has been evicted from the animal farm, and with no opposition to Napoleon, now Napoleon becomes the sole leader, and now he also assumes the position, and he calls his animal farm a republic, and he almost announces himself as the leader of the republic. So this is the plot line, a brief plot line. Now of course animals obviously are not happy, especially Boxer, so they try to ask him questions, and again with the help of his dogs, Napoleon almost sheds them. Now look what has happened, all these animals fought against Jones, and with a vision, with a dream that under the new regime they would be treated equally. Now what has happened, at least earlier they had freedom of expression, because Jones was a careless neighbor. He wouldn't mind their talking among themselves. Now Napoleon is begun imposing a lot of curbs. Now he says, from this point onwards there would be no more debates, there would be no more public gatherings, and there would be no more votes. Then how are the decisions taken? The decisions from this point of time would be taken by the select few pigs, right? The select few pigs. So now consolidation of power has happened absolutely. Now it is in the hands of pigs, not all of them, but Napoleon and his followers. Now Squealer plays a major role in convincing animals. Remember, Squealer stands for the newspaper, the powerful newspaper, which also acted as a mouthpiece of the Stalinist regime. So now, after having driven away Snowball, in this chapter Napoleon famously does a double speak and says that he wants to establish the windmill in the farm. Now everybody is confused, because they thought Napoleon from the word go did not want the windmill to be there. Now why is it that all of a sudden there is a volte-face? Volte-face is an abrupt turn, a quick turn, 180-degree turn, and now Napoleon announces he is going ahead. He wants to go ahead with the plan of windmill, and now all the animals have to work together in order for this windmill to happen. In fact, you remember, right, the windmill that was in the previous chapter too, The windmill had begun, they had begun building the windmill under the leadership of Snowball, but during this battle with the human beings, it was destroyed. Earlier, of course, the storm destroyed it. I mean, not storm, the human beings destroyed it, and now once again, now he says you need to establish the windmill. So these are, you can already see the change scenario, you can already see the change scenario in the animal form. Okay. Yeah. In chapter 6, again the work on windmill begins in a full swing. Now animals, they really find it very, very difficult. Now remember, earlier they just had to do whatever little bit they did, because human beings too tilled the land, though they assisted, animals as assisted, of course their load of work was not as much as it is now. Nevertheless, Boxer is oblivious to all this. He says, I trust Napoleon, Napoleon is our great leader and I want to work harder. The indifference of again the working class towards the double speak of their leaders, and how misplaced trust, all this leads to disastrous consequence there. Now Napoleon has emerged as the most powerful figure, and now what happens in chapter 6? Now remember, I mean all these chapters subsequently from chapter 5 onwards, what you see, all the noble 7 commandments that you had read in chapter 2, now they go on undergoing transformations, they undergo transformations, or what happens is there is an amendment to constitution, what you can say. Now these commandments or now they undergo a radical change. Now earlier they said they had nothing to do with human beings, no truck with human beings, no business with human beings. Now Napoleon famously declares that if they shut off human beings, they will not be able to run the farm in a profitable way. Therefore, in order to sell some of their farm produce, he wants to engage a human being as a solicitor. Therefore, he hires a human being who coordinates a transaction between the neighboring human beings and animals of this particular farm. And again some people try to oppose it. Again, so anybody who tries to oppose, he employs his trusted dogs, and the dogs tear them to pieces. As a result of this, many animals have been, they die. Napoleon kills the animals that even try to differ from whatever he speaks. So now imagine if dissent is disobedience. In most of these totalitarian regimes, for dictators, dissent becomes disobedience, and that is why they are intolerant of an idea that a differing idea. Difference becomes disobedience, dissent becomes disobedience. So any act of disobedience, they will treat him, treat such things in a very merciless way. Okay. So animals are being slaughtered here, and gradually no animal shall kill other animals. That particular, you remember that commandment, right? Then it's been amended as no animal shall kill other animals without a cause, without a proper cause, something like that. So all these things undergo radical transformation. It's a sad state of affair has begun. So now from chapter 6 and 7 onwards, the falling action begins. Now there is a in fact there are some animals here in chapter 7. What happens, there is a growing dissent, murmurs of unhappiness is growing, because now animals are doing more work and getting less food. Why are they getting less food despite having a good harvest? Because now Napoleon is selling the harvest, produce, the farm produce to the neighboring farms, getting money from there, getting money from there. So as a result of it, animals here are not getting enough food. Unfortunately, how does Napoleon convinces them? Using squealer, using some statistics, Now squealer convinces animals, no, you don't remember, now look at, I have statistics here, according to our statistics you are getting more food now than what you used to get. Of course statistics can be manipulated, that it's called alternating facts. Statistics, famously of course George Orwell termed statistics as alternate facts. So of course this is a euphemistic term for lies, right. So a gradual spread of lies takes place, as a result of which anybody who opposes gets killed. Now Napoleon rounds up every other animal who he thinks has some kind of allegiance to Snowball, and also murders all of them. Now look at it from, it's like you can say, from, there is a proverb, you jump from pan to fire, right, you jump from pan to fire. Now this is precisely what has happened. In their eagerness to escape the tyranny of Mr. Jones, now all these animals have fallen under the dictatorship of Napoleon, who proves to be more cruel and more insensitive than Mr. Jones, right. So that's a sad state of affair. So let's go ahead and discuss chapter 8. And again, as I said, the commandments undergo a radical change. Now the new commandment reads, or the amended constitution of animal farm reads, no animal shall kill any other animal without cause. That's how he justifies his killing. And in the meanwhile, what has happened? Remember, they had in fact, out of the 7 commandments, 4 dealt with not doing anything with human beings, no wearing clothes, no drinking alcohol, no sleeping on bed, no business with human beings and all that. Now animals, the rest of the animals find out that now pigs, which represent the ruling elite, now they have begun sleeping on the mattresses, the beds, and when somebody questions, squealer takes them to where the amended rule says that no animal shall use bed with bed sheet, something like that. He said, of course we can use beds, especially for our intellectual work, we pigs need to use it, otherwise we become weak, and when we become weak, Jones will come back. More than Jones, now they are whipping up Snowball. In fact, now Snowball has become a traitor, so they want to use Snowball. Now Snowball has been turned into a traitor at all. Now look, Snowball played a major role in the revolution. Now under the propaganda regime, now they have turned it, they have turned the past into saying that no, actually Snowball was a traitor all along, he fought along with Jones, and therefore nobody should even think of Snowball. So this is how all commandments get changed. Now when somebody says that pigs are drinking alcohol and it's against the constitution, and again you find the constitution amended, no animal shall drink alcohol to excess. That means alcohol consumption is allowed, especially that's required for pigs to survive and sustain, something like that. So look how gradually all of them, and in the meanwhile when some animals want to sing the old anthem, Beasts of England, it says that Napoleon has banned that old anthem, because now that anthem talked of revolution. Now what is the need for revolution? Now that we have set up our own regime, there is no need for revolution. Therefore that anthem is replaced with Comrade Napoleon, extolling the virtues of Napoleon and all that. So this is a total destruction of the ideal. What more, how worse can it get? Okay. Now in chapter 9, of course, final nail to the coffin has been hit, because here what happens, Napoleon announces himself as the president, self-elected president. Of course there is nobody to contest against him, that. And Boxer, all along who had supported Napoleon, now he grows weak, and one day while working he falls sick, and Napoleon announces that he would be taken to a hospital and taken a good care of. Now what happens, when the van comes to pick up Boxer, who is no longer there, the animals discover, especially Benjamin the donkey and other animals, they discover that the van bears the name, it is a slaughterhouse. That is a van that belongs to the slaughterhouse. Now all animals, now look at it, Boxer, if there was one animal who was sincere, who was dedicated, honest and loyal towards Napoleon, you could not find anybody better than Boxer. Now even Boxer during his old age is not taken care of, rather than helping him with retirement benefit which all of them had agreed. Now he is being sent to a glue house or a slaughterhouse. But again, Squealer has been sent, and Squealer manipulates the whole thing in such a way that now the hospital actually had bought the vehicle of that belonged to the slaughterhouse. They forgot to repaint it, that is all. Otherwise he was taken to a hospital. Unfortunately he could not recover. Doctors tried a lot to revive him, but he succumbed to injuries, or he dies. He no longer, but he keeps praising Napoleon. He kept praising Napoleon even towards the end. That is how Squealer uses even the memory of the hardworking guy Boxer to tame the other animals. So this is the story. Now this oppression continues in chapter 10. Of course, it is the conclusion. What happens here in chapter 10, of course, we are sent in future. It has been a few years now, and unfortunately the oppression has continued, but nobody now recalls even their earlier revolution. Now the surrender, they have totally surrendered to the new regime, new doctrine, which is more authoritarian, which is more cruel, which is more dictatorial, and which is worse than the administration governance they had at one point of time. And now the final, as I said, the last nail in the coffin comes when Napoleon famously declares that he is inviting some human beings to his farm, and now they are trying to become friends. Now all the animals are aghast, because they thought now human beings are at least not allowed. Now they realize that human beings have been allowed inside the animal farm, and now a banquet has been hosted in their honor, and pigs and human beings are sitting on a table and are eating and drinking, merrymaking and all that. Now other animals are really aghast and they are at a loss, and in the meanwhile the pigs, they have learned to walk on just two legs. So and now accordingly the last amendment says, now earlier it said that 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. Now the revised amendment says 4 legs good, 2 legs better. Now this is very, very unfortunate, and there is one final thing, which is all animals are equal. Right now the final amendment to that also happens. Now it says all animals are equal, but a few animals are more equal than the others. A few animals are more equal than the others. What a fall from the great ideal, what a fall from the great ideal. Well, you have heard of Shakespeare, who in one of his sonnets remarks, lilies that fester smell far worse than weeds, right? Lilies are beautiful flowers, they smell so beautifully too, they look so beautiful. But when they fester, when they start decaying, they smell far worse than weeds. So a great ideal, an extraordinary vision, a noble dream, when it turns sour, becomes more oppressive, more cruel, and more despotic, more despotic. So this is the final picture. This is how it happens. So these things should give you an idea about what animal farm is all about. Of course, we highlighted on important things. For a better understanding of these things, you need to read the novel. Nothing can replace reading the novel. Okay, so in the next class we take up how it can be critically read, how we can apply some of the elements of fiction, some of the techniques, narrative techniques we learnt in the previous class to this novel, and see how we can analyze it. All right, thank you. See you in the next class.